Welcome to the MSP Corner podcast. Before we kick off our show, we would like to share what our main objective is at the MSP Corner. Our main goal is to help CEOs build profitable and self-sustainable IT service firms. We are not just providing tools for IT firms, we will be sitting in meetings with you to ensure your IT firm stays on track. The first area we are focused on, strategic sales. IT firms are stuck selling technology or IT support. We will provide you with the blueprint so you position your firm as an added value to your prospects. We will have framework on how to sell value so you influence the prospect into selecting your firm. The second area we see many IT firms struggle in is marketing. 90+% of businesses rely on antiquated marketing methods. The most popular choice, word of mouth. We have proven methods on how to attract the ideal prospect. Our framework will include how to become the online authority and be the business influencer for an industry. The third component to our package, scaling. IT firms walk away from opportunities because they lack the bandwidth or skill set to scale. We have lined up reputable businesses so our members can hire on-demand resources that will allow them to scale their business. The fourth area we will offer help in, selecting the right tools. In order to deliver value, you need the right tech stack. Our platform will offer information on products that are the ideal choice for MSPs. The fifth area we will offer help in is with documentation. Templates are a critical component when building an MSP. We will have contracts, proposals, SOWs, collateral, and much more in the template section. You will have every document you need to start up your managed IT service business. Thank you for tuning in. Let's go to our next podcast.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into another MSP Corner podcast. I am your host, Fernando Leon, and I'm joined by my co-host, Gregory Morabiec. And today's topic is, why the RMM is critical to IT firms. And so I'm the one usually doing all the talking, but today really we're turning this more into an interview because Gregory is our resident guru who is just phenomenal when it comes to technology and overall IT strategy. So he's very knowledgeable when it comes to technology, security, and all of that good stuff. So, but before we start the show, let's just quickly go over the agenda. I so let's start with bullet point number one. Well, we're going to talk about how the RMM contributes to productivity and efficiency. Why does an RMM or what in what ways does an RMM enhance an IT department's ability to respond to issues and incidents? Uh, Next is, what role does an RMM play in cybersecurity? Next, implementation of RMM tools, right? How it affects and the teams and how they manage and maintain IT assets. How it also influences cost, and how does an RMM handle remote and hybrid work environments? And the last three questions we'll be asking Gregory is, in what ways does an RMM facilitate better reporting? Because we all work by metrics now. Metrics are so critical these days. But the features of an RMM, and then how does an RMM help manage and support multiple devices? And then our last question or bullet point here is, the future of RMM. How will it be evolving? So we'll get Gregory's input on that. So let's get this show on the road. But let me just give you guys a quick. Gregory's a very humble individual, so he doesn't really like to talk about his history and all that, and how much he's saved. He's come to the rescue of so many organizations. Gregory and I met at a startup many, many, many moons ago, and his claim to fame is building an environment in the early 2001 where back then a little girl named Britney Spears was becoming a giant celebrity. And Gregory and I worked at a startup where we had these online chats, and there was just a lot of panic back in that day because they didn't know how they were going to handle a million people coming to our chat room. You just didn't have that type of technology back then that allowed you to scale and handle that much network traffic. And Gregory came up with answers to solve that type of problem. So we that's his claim to fame. Do you remember that project, Greg?
Yeah, and we scaled with hardware versus nowadays they scale with, with compute power
Yep.
and and disk. We had to scale by hand back then. So, and we never knew how much we were going to have, how many people are going to go.
Yep.
1,105, 1,605, 2 million, 30 million. I mean, how would you know? So we
Yep.
had to
Yep.
scale with hardware. It was exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. I'm just stunned that you guys made it happen back then when technology is not even near what it is today. I mean, it was like the dark ages back then. I'm going to assume when you compare it to today.
It wasn't the
So
dark ages, but it definitely was. It was a challenge.
okay. All right. Well, let's dive into this. So, Greg, my first question is, how does RMM contribute to the overall efficiency and productivity of the network? What is your feedback on something like that when you get that type of question?
Well, so RMM is just remote monitoring and management. Remote monitoring. Let's talk about that. Remote means that it's not on-prem. You're not physically accessing the machine, so you can do it to multiple locations. You can do it to, multiple companies. So remote is that component of it. Monitoring means that it has agents, or it's agentless, or it's headless, or it's got some sort of a trap or some kind that you install on it, or you monitor it, and it'll tell you data will come from it. So what is in that data? CPU utilization, disk utilization, uptime, maybe IO, disk IO, or some other things like that. You can monitor those things, and then when they hit certain thresholds, like if your CPU is at 99% for 10 minutes, it will alert you. So the alerting part is that you can alert yourself by SMS or phone, or via email, or on a dashboard if you have a knock or a sock looking at your monitoring. And so you can tell if a network port is got maxed out on bandwidth for a certain amount of time. So that way you could proactively or over time create patterns that you can recognize, that'll say, okay, look, at some of our customers at night, their bandwidth gets really low, and they don't know why, but it might be because they're running a backup at night and they're using all their bandwidth to move data to the cloud or something similar to that. So if you want to, you can then stagger. For instance, something that you could do proactively to correct that would be you would stagger your backups so that they all wouldn't happen at the same time, slurping up 100% of the bandwidth, and then maybe causing things to fail or to not work as they should. So there's monitoring, and then there's management. And you can remote control with most of these tools. Ninja, because Datto, uh, all these different tools that do RMM, you can remote control things, from far away, and you have the ability to get to them and change settings, and you can also send scripts to them, and scriptlets, or you can send commands to them, and that allows you to make changes on those machines remotely without being in front of them.
Hmm,
So
hmm.
that's RMM in a nutshell. Now, there are dozens of other add-ons that some of these companies have, like N Central, and and that might do inventory. They might do software, a warranty check, network mapping, backup, EDR. There's all these modules these companies are trying to spin onto them. But for the most part, RMM is remote monitoring and management.
Now, can you provide a specific example where RMM has reduced downtime or streamlined operations?
Reducing downtime isn't really the purview of the RMM tool. It's just reporting to you that there is downtime. Now, that might reduce it because now you know about it. So your RMM tool is saying to you, "Hey, by the way, your Chicago office is down." um, and maybe you didn't know that, so you can't fix it if you don't know it. So now that it's told you that it's down, the fact that you know it now is the fact that you can go and repair it, and that would be a reduction in downtime. Basically, someone from Chicago doesn't have to call you and say, "Hey, the network's down." You already know it. Maybe you know it a day before, maybe on Friday night at 5 o'clock. You might know it 72 hours ahead of time, or you might know it minutes before. The person from Chicago calls you and says, "Hey, by the way, this is down."
Yeah, but I was under the impression an RMM tool is there to predict potential disruptions.
No, it
So,
can't predict anything. It reports.
okay, so let me reframe that. So if you set the RMM to report on specific thresholds, let's say if a server is reaching 90 percentile, it might crash if it gets to 95. So if it reports to you that, hey, you're at 90% storage capacity, you should move a certain amount of data to another location so the server doesn't crash. Is that right? Am I misinterpreting what RMM can do? Is that what do you call that?
That's more like that's more like a fantasy you have, that you want to do this. But I mean,
Okay.
how would you know all of the circumstances that would happen and all their solutions? You know what I mean? I appreciate you saying that, and that sounds fun and nice. But that's one thing that could go wrong in a
Sure,
world
sure.
of millions of things. So you've got a world filled with millions of problems, and you're going to try to solve each and every one of them. Okay, when the CPU is this, we'll go and shut this process down. But if the CPU is this, then go and shut these three processes down. Or if the hard drive on this computer is full, go move everything to here. But if the hard drive on that other one gets full, then move everything over to there. I mean, you can't do that. It'll drive you mad.
Mm,
You need to react to things properly. Now, preventatively, you could create blanket statements that said, if hard drives are filling, do the following, and that would be helpful. But you don't want to
okay,
micromanage. You want to macro manage. And in order
got
to
it.
macro managing should be done to like machine groups, not individual machines. But you can create. I've seen an environment where, if here's an example, if a person is performing transactions on a web server, and those transactions are accessing the database, and the database gives you basically it gives you a stream of that it gives you and that you can use. Now, after a certain number of people, say into the thousands, use all those streams, you start to run out,
Mm,
or the machine can't handle more streams for its memory or its CPU or its disk. It just can't handle it anymore. So what you need to do is you need to spin up a new instance of that web server for the next set of transactions.
mm,
Now,
mm.
that web server's got to be super vanilla. It can't have really super high end customization on it. It's just there as a portal to accept more streams, more hooks into the database that can perform more transactions. So you could do that, and in essence, what you would do is you'd be expanding the capabilities. It's called scaling. You'd be scaling out your own infrastructure based on a certain set of requirements. But that's usually when you have overusage, and overusage is not really super a hard problem to solve. Outages are difficult to solve because you don't know what's going to cause them. I mean, there's could be a lightning strike. It could be Fred in accounting drives his car through the server room door. I mean, who knows what it could be? And if when it does happen, you shouldn't have 10,000 things set up to correct it, because then they might start stepping on one another and there'll be a cascade of disaster.
Mm.
So you really want to just try to be as concise as possible and macro manage, not micromanage.
Got it. Got it. Oh, that's good to know. That's, the audience is obviously all IT people, so I'm sure some of these guys will appreciate your feedback there. Because well, I'll just keep going with the questions because we hit on a lot of topics, but and tell me, in what way does RMM enhance an MSP's ability to respond to IT issues and incidents?
Well, it is the core of the response, and it is telling you about the incident. It's not
Okay.
enhancing you. It's 100% of the incident reporting. Other than somebody telling you, right?
Yeah.
Someone going, "Hey, Chicago's down."
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're like, "I know that because I have monitoring tools."
Got it. Yeah, I'm assuming this is okay. So obviously, the RMM is going to respond on issues and will provide you insight on what's going on with internally with some of these devices. But would you say the RMM tool impacts the satisfaction level of users, and it enhances the ability for business continuity?
So business continuity, in my terms, is the continuous operation of your business. So what does that mean? That could mean 1,000 different things to 1,000 different people, right? If
Yep.
we run a ice cream truck, do what business continuity for us is the freezer working in the truck, right?
Hmm.
If the
Hmm.
freezer fails in the truck, then we lose money. Now,
Hmm.
how do we ensure continuity? We could have a generator, um, extra generator with maybe diesel fuel in it somewhere attached to the back of the truck. We could have a secondary freezer that isn't full, that we can move everything over to in the event that there's an outage. But as I said just now, none of that business continuity entails machines, systems.
Mm.
We were
Okay.
talking about engines and parts and space and storage. Now, when you get into the computer world and apps and so on and so forth, your business continuity looks different, and you need to figure out on your own what that really means. Like
Hmm.
for what I just gave as an example, no IT company is going to need ice cream to be cold, so they don't have those solutions. They got to come up with their own solutions. Being able to predict or being told when things are going to go down can enhance your business continuity if you have the appropriate macro responses set in place to take care of things. Now, what I just told you about the company that uses that scaling. Now, if the primary server say it crashed, say it got overloaded or someone hacked into it, if I scaled out two more servers, one to take the place of the one that got destroyed and one to take the overload, then my scaling became a business continuity solution as well, because I've replaced that original server that got compromised with another one that I spun up because I can scale. And I now have a resilient, um, harder to break system. But does
Hmm.
my RMM tool do all that? It can facilitate it a bit by running scripts, but for the most part, no. The
Okay.
RMM tool is just remoting in, managing, and responding to alerts.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Okay. You know, because cybersecurity now is becoming a big problem, does the RMM play a role in an organization's cybersecurity strategy at all, or is this mainly, hey, RMM does its part, we got different tools for cybersecurity, or does it even get involved on the cybersecurity side?
Now, cybersecurity has nothing to do with RMM, but
Okay.
you could make a case for RMM being a tool to detect forensics, to do forensics with. So now if somebody broke into my computer at 12 o'clock, and my computer in from the perspective of the RMM tool goes offline at 12:30, then someone could maybe connect a dot saying, well, do you see someone broke into my computer at noon and it went offline at 12:30? The RMM tool detected that. That's something you could say forensically. Can it prevent cybersecurity issues from happening? Now that they have all these add-ons, yes, you can
Okay.
put an add-on into your RMM tool that says, hey, monitor my environment for viruses. And if the RMM tool gets fed an alert that says a virus has entered your system, it can take action with a script or something like a macro action. It can quarantine that machine, let you know about it, and say, hey, I think something's wrong over here. Can you check it out? And then, yeah, it could be a tool where, but for the most part, RMM tools, the basic RMM tool, no. The more advanced tools, which are incorporating more and more and more tool sets into them because they want to make more money, then yeah. But for the most part, the EDR is actually doing the job of cybersecurity, not the RMM tool. The RMM tool is just basically telling you, hey there, something's wrong over here with your EDR, and you're not maybe knowledgeable about it because maybe you're not looking at it or somebody else is not looking at it or something like that.
Gotcha. Now, after you've implemented the RMM tool, has it affected the way the team manages and maintains IT assets? Has it made life easier on the IT team?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, being able to remote in and being able to be told about problems that are occurring, absolutely.
Mhm.
Those are yeah, undescribably important.
Great. Yeah. We these guys, they work so hard in a stressful environment. Anything that helps them give them the ability to easily manage IT assets is going to be obviously welcomed, and something that break fix firms need to really consider and really research, because it changed our company, right? I know we didn't embrace the MSP model until 2003, so we were in the break fix the break fix model for a couple of years when I came on board. But I remember the day you made that switch. You're like, we're going to the MSP model. And it was a little difficult to grasp in the beginning, but we eventually embraced the whole model, and it's worked out really well. Does RMM influence cost management within the MSP, would you say? Or can you discuss that a little bit?
Well, I mean, you have to spend money to make money, right? In this
Yep.
business, you can't just you could hang a shingle outside a door and say, hey, I can provide services as Gregory, the soldier of darkness, the power ranger, and he can go out and kick butt and take names, right?
Yep.
But even in that show, they have alert systems. They have, monitoring. They're monitoring the galaxy for trouble. They're not doing that with the individuals. They have like systems. They probably have an RMM tool of their own. So you can't be proactively, or you can't be reactive. I won't say proactive in this sentence. You can't reactively support your customers because it's okay to be reactive. Like I said, you can't know everything at all times.
Yep.
If lightning strikes a building, I can't proactively stop that. I mean, I can put a lightning rod on top of the building, but I can't. I'm not God. I don't have the power to divert lightning. I'm not Thor. I can't do it. But if for some reason nature or physical, someone drives their car into the building and it cuts the power or cuts the fiber, I
Yep.
can I can do things that will cost money to prevent those things from happening, but I can't guarantee that they're not going to happen. So that's why you can be preventative. Like if you wanted to stop people from driving into your building, you could surround your building with cement, or metal barriers, right? And
Yep.
stop them. But you got to pay for that. But then
hmm
that doesn't stop an airplane from crashing into your building. Well, like, how do you know? I mean,
Yep.
and if you think that stuff doesn't happen, it
hmm
actually does. Airplanes and people steal equipment. Janitors pour coffee on servers. It happens. I've seen it. It's not a joke.
Yep. Now, pre-COVID, 99% of employees were going into the office, and when was it? I think it was March 21st when the government said, "Hey, we all have to go home and work from home." Did the RMM help, or was there any major configurations you had to make when you had to, you now had a hybrid work environment? People were going into the office, but some were working from home. Were there any challenges when that switch occurred? And
Yeah,
if
so
there,
when you have all your computers inside of your building, it's not very difficult to figure out when there's a
sure,
problem with one of them, right? Or if
sure,
their
yep,
disk drive is filling up. It's like he's your neighbor, or he comes into your room with his computer and he puts it on the table and says, "This thing is full. Can you fix it? Help me."
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
imagine everyone's gone. There's no one coming into your office. Everyone's at home. So
yep.
now you got to figure out what's going on at everyone's houses. So yeah, you've got to monitor them all and see what's going on. Now, that even pushes out into some more craziness where you're monitoring their activity as well. You're trying to figure out what is this person doing when they're at home,
Yep, yep.
and you can monitor for that.
Does it make it a little bit more challenging? Would you say?
No, no,
No,
not at
that
all.
doesn't make, not at all. Okay.
No.
Well, let's go into an area where we discuss metrics. In what way does RMM facilitate better reporting and data-driven decision making for, let's say, clients or within the MSP? Does reporting provide you with some critical data that makes you, say, "Hey, we're going in this direction now," or "We got to make some changes here"? What can you shed some light on the reporting? What's important to you, and what's important to our clients? What are people looking for in their reporting?
I mean, reporting is a little bit of a weak sauce scenario. Reporting, you could report, but you'd have to have some really good requirements for reporting.
Hmm.
If it was just you and me working out of office, and you were selling and I was going out to the field and banging on computers, what reporting do we about our computers and our network do we care about? Pretty much nothing, right? We
Yeah.
don't care about that at all. It's like, oh, my computer's running slow because I have too many applications open, and it's like the solution to that is not advanced and complicated. But I've run into scenarios where people will come to me and go, my application is slow at 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock every day. Why? And
Hmm.
I've got to figure it out. So then I've got to run reports that show me, is that true? Is there something happening at that time? What I can monitor like 1,000 different things. Let me see which one of them is inordinately increasing at 3 o'clock. And if I look and it says, no, you know what? Disk IO or memory utilization at 3 o'clock starts to go up. And why is that? And I've got to monitor for it and say, okay, why is it? Okay, well, the backup software is writing and reading and writing to this disk a million times a second, and that's taking up all the available resources on this machine. So I have to go, oh wow, well, okay, so 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock is prime selling time, or whatever. I shouldn't be using this backup tool during this interval, and I'll have to change it over or figure out why that particular issue is occurring. And it's even super harder to do if you don't have a monitoring tool.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Okay. If you could pick your top three features of an RMM tool, which ones would they be? Because you're just like, I can't do without, or maybe it's five features. I don't know. What would you say that number is?
It
Because
would only be one feature. It would be remote control. It would be remote
really
control. If it didn't do remote control, I would throw it in the toilet because it would be useless. So
interesting.
if it didn't do monitoring without agents, I could live with it. If it didn't do monitoring without SNMP, I could live with it. If it didn't do remote control, I would throw it away. It would be of no
Interesting.
use to me at all.
Ah, wow.
So
So
it's
that
got to do remote control. Everything else I can kind of work around. If it doesn't do scripting, if there's not a lot of modules, if it didn't do EDR, I mean, I could live with it. But
Yeah.
if it
Yeah.
if it monitored, like there's a program out there like that just is like ping. It's called Ping Test or whatever.
Yeah.
All it does is it pings your website, and if your website goes down, it tells you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it doesn't have remote control, so it's like, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah.
If I can't remote control and find out what's going on, then what the hell's the big deal? What's the matter? What's the point?
Yep. No, I get that. Yeah, I could see that remote monitoring being a very powerful feature. Just you don't have to drive to the office. The client could
It's
be,
remote control, yeah. Remote
yeah,
monitoring is what it is,
yeah,
but remote control is the
yeah.
control is the key.
Very nice.
I remember,
Obviously.
I'll tell you a story. There wasn't anything such as remote control.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever my grandmother had a problem, that my grandmother, man, when I was young, whenever she had a trouble with her computer, I had to go over there. I had to drive over
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then one day there was remote control, and I didn't have to drive over there, and my brain almost exploded. I thought it was going to be the next, biggest, most. They were going to be charging like $500 a seat for remote control, and that they were going to hold it back from us and keep us from having it, right? And that I was going to be crying in my soup all night because I was going to be like, I want a remote control software, but they were giving it away for free. It was free, and it was shocked.
Wow. Wow. That's
And
interesting.
it could still be free.
Wow. Well, the multi-tenant feature is also pretty important, wouldn't you say? Because if you,
It is if you want to share it with somebody,
okay, okay,
but if you don't want to share
gotcha.
it with anybody, if it's internal to your house,
Yep.
then who cares?
Oh, gotcha. Okay, okay. And obviously, an RMM is going to help you manage and support multiple devices, and obviously the software within an organization. Do you see any? How would I frame this? Is that ever a challenge? Because if you have hundreds of devices, does the RMM make life easier managing that amount of devices on a dashboard because you can easily see which devices are having problems? What do you
Yeah,
see on
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. If you have thousands, hundreds, dozens, yeah,
Hmm.
seeing it all at the same time is the way to go.
Yeah. You see, that's a nice feature. I mean, how can you not like that feature?
You do. It's okay, but if I couldn't see it, if I had to go one at a time, it would suck. But
Yeah.
I could live with it. It wouldn't be the end of the world. But if I couldn't remote control into that computer, then there's no point in it. If I have to go one by one, looking at it one at a time, yeah, it would suck. If there's no single pane of glass,
Mhm.
it's a good feature. You're right. It's a good feature, but it's not the end of the world. The end of the world is when it doesn't have any remote control powers.
Now, looking ahead, you're a great visionary. Looking ahead of the RMM platform, how do you see that role evolving in the next few years? Do you see any major changes, or do you see just the same old stuff that we see today? Do you see any new changes? Because I mean, when RMM came out in what 2000 in the early 2000s, right? I mean, it was 2003, I believe. I don't know, 2002 maybe. But do you see any new changes, any new evolving into anything new in the next several
Yeah,
years?
I do. I mean, AI can completely do some good things in RMM because AI will, if you tell it to predict, if be predictive to be watching it for you instead of your text, and you're telling it what rules, and it learns from those rules. AI could become a very powerful tool so that
Mm,
you don't have to have a knock worker anymore looking at your RMM because your AI is doing it for you. So yeah, absolutely. AI could help push a lot, RMM tools more into the future, and them continuously bolting shit into it. They're constantly bolting stuff onto that thing, and
mm,
so the more bolt-ons they do, the more attractive it's going to be, right? Because then you can actually maybe solve problems
mm,
in
mm.
different parts of your network, different technologies, all at the same place all at the same time from the same place.
That's great. I figure AI is just going to be is it going to be a bolt-on, or do you think these RMM companies are getting really smart and just integrating
They're going to
AI?
integrate it. Yeah, they're going to
Okay,
just integrate it.
got it, got it. All right, last question before we go into our conclusion here. There are many RMM options to consider, right? I mean, you already know how many RMM tools are out there, which is great for the IT industry because you got to have competition. You just can't have one company owning the market. That's just not going to do any good for anybody. But what would be the 5 top reasons for picking our current RMM tool? What do you love about it? Maybe it's not. Maybe 5 is a stretch. Maybe it's just 2 or 3. But you already said remote monitoring. But there's got to be some other features that you just love about the RMM tool.
No, I'd say 0. I would say 0 because I'll tell you why. I'm a specific person that has a specific set of needs.
Yeah.
If you aren't me, then you aren't going to need what I need. What do I need? I needed to have remote control capabilities. I needed to be able to be agentless. I needed to be able to be not expensive. I needed to be able to be an industry standard. Those are my requirements for me, but I would not say that those are the requirements for anyone who's looking into an RMM tool. You need to figure out what you need to have, what you need to do, based on who your customers are, what their expectations are, what are the requirements of your RFP that you've got. I mean, does it say that you need to monitor SQL servers and blah blah blah? Maybe that's what you need to do. And
Yeah.
so if your RMM tool, none of the things I just said that are important to me are allowing you to monitor SQL servers in the way maybe they want to do performance testing of SQL servers. Maybe they want you to build a sandbox or whatever.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that what I want for me is important to you. So I would say you need to, as a listener of this podcast, decide if you need to monitor network traffic. How well do you need to break open packets? Do
Yeah.
you need to do ping trace analysis, packet analysis? None of the things I said about my RMM requirements do any of those things. So I wouldn't listen to me in the sense that what my requirements are for a good monitoring tool are important. It's like, what are your requirements for a good, wife? What are those? They're not the same as what mine are, right? So
Yeah.
you got to figure out what you want to do for yourself, what your customers want you to do, what your requirements are, what the RFP states, what the contract has in it, and then meet those objectives with the RMM tool you're going to choose, or have one that's flexible enough to meet more than 1 or 2 or 3 or 100 requirements easily and not be not be troublesome to you. So I would not give any kind of recommendation to anyone because I don't know what they're looking for or looking at.
Well, let's dive into the conclusion, because obviously, if you're still stuck in break fix and if you plan to deliver an MSP model, the MSP solution, you need an RMM tool to deliver that proactive model. And I know we only discussed RMM, but there are, Greg, if I'm off here, there's 4 more components that need to work with the RMM. Obviously, right? You got documentation, ticketing, EDR, backup. And does the PSA tool, and that's 5, but does the PSA tool work with the RMM?
Sure, and I'll tell
Okay.
you how in some scenarios it can.
Okay.
First of all, your customers are in your CRM tool, right? You can feed the customer from your CRM into your RMM tool. So all of your customers in your CRM can be consumed by your RMM tool, so that you don't have to go in there and hand create them, which we don't have to do. We just synchronize them and they just show up in there. As soon as they're marked customer, they move over into our RMM tool as a fresh customer that's ready to be modified. Then in your PSA tool, you might have inventory already that you're selling
Okay.
to that customer. The RMM tool can absorb that inventory, and you can then use it to assign it to particular companies within the RMM tool, or locations, or or you can also start naming them. And, or, I sold you this server in 2023. We're going to call it PDC1. It's, that's the server. Here's the serial number. It might even, help you with more information on that particular device that you needed, that you would have to look up if you didn't have it synced up with your PSA tool. So yeah, the RMM tool can touch your documentation, and in there as well, it could spill out config files into the documentation. It could also burp up like the rest of some data, like the warranty, the expiration, how many times people have opened tickets on it, what was the last ticket somebody opened, and that could tie back into your PSA tool. So you could have documentation, PSA, and endpoint detection. You can auto smack that out with your RMM tool, because it has the capability to deploy software. So you might deploy software, you might do patch management. There's all these different bolt-ons.
Yep. Well, that's good to know. Well, I know there's many flavors in the market when it comes to the RMM stack, but my advice to everybody is pick wisely and don't skimp. Right? You can't go cheap on these type of tools. Or what is your opinion on that, Greg?
Again, go back to what I said about your RFP, your customer request, your what you need. Do you need to buy a Cadillac? Or can you get by with a Honda? Maybe. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows?
All right, good to know. All right, well, that's a wrap, guys, and I thank you for listening, and don't forget to sign up to be a member on the MSP Corner website. Please share our link with a CEO who will find our information beneficial to their business. You can always email Gregory and I at info@mspcorner.com. We'll send us your questions. We're happy. We respond pretty quickly. So, but that's a wrap, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you for listening, and don't forget to sign up to be a member on www.mspcorner.com. Please share our link with a CEO who will find our information beneficial to their business. Have an awesome day.